Every day I'm just like, just work. You know what? It's all it needs.
There's always anxiety. We've been online for what, 2.5 years now, but there's still
We
a there's a
still.
does it work? Can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me? Yeah, it's amazing. It's wild.
I think it's a really good, I mean, maybe we'll get into that later in our convo as we wait for people to join us, but it's kind of a good, I feel like that's an interesting reminder of, because it's happened to us in the past, we
Hmm.
keep carrying it forward, right? We had moments when we were first going online where it didn't work and we were scared of being online for everything. And we still, 2.5 years later, have those fears that we've carried with us. And that's really just so symbolic to like everything in our lives. We're
Yeah,
going deep on a Wednesday morning,
that's
Brett.
right. You're already in.
Welcome to it.
What is it? 57 seconds in, and you're philosophical. You've already identified stress and anxiety and given it a
Yeah,
wonderful
just
example. Goodness
boom.
sakes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For
Well,
sure.
I started and have fallen in love with the practice of meditation in the
Oh, it's
last
great.
in the last 3 months. And so, yeah, like I was up with a group of people and we congregate on Zoom at 6:30 in the morning and start our day with a meditation. So I like that's why I can be deep 57 seconds in. Yeah.
Right, good for you. Tell me more about that. What's
The
that look like
day's
for
half
you?
over. Yeah. No, I have a friend who she's a meditation teacher,
Yeah.
and it was always her dream to start to do like a meditation challenge. And she was really afraid, but she decided to jump in. And so it was 2 months ago, she did a 20-day, 20-minute challenge. So we got on Zoom, none of us turned the camera on, just her. And she leads us through a guided meditation for 20
Mhm.
minutes. And we did it every day for 20 days. Well, not everybody, but
Yeah.
I did it every day for 20 days. I was so proud. And then now she does it 3 days a week just to kind of keep people versed in the practice.
Yeah.
And through that, I'm obsessed. Like I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, it's really powerful stuff. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Lots of people I work with, when we talk about the idea of meditation, but even if you shift it to the idea of mindfulness, which they're
Yeah.
they're kind of first cousins if they were, but so many
Yeah.
people think mindfulness has to be meditation, but
Yeah.
mindfulness and the practice of is uh, is phenomenal stuff. And I don't think, in my opinion, mindfulness doesn't always have to be meditation. I think
No.
sometimes it resonates better with the male population. Like, I'm not going to sit and meditate, not a
Yeah.
chance.
I
But
don't
we
have
can
time for that. Yeah.
yeah, we can still be mindful and have a mindfulness practice as long as we're kind of intentional in those things. So that's pretty cool. Good for you. Way to
Yeah.
go.
Well, there was a great visual. I don't know if I could describe it well in this on the spot, but I was taking in another meditation course. And so it's like we have thoughts that last between 1 to 3 seconds, about
Sure.
50,000 plus of them a day. So
Hmm.
in between, and our thoughts run, she said, like a train, right?
Yeah.
So in between each train is a little gap. So when you go down a certain level, that's where you start to be mindful. And when you go right down to the bottom, that's when you meditate.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting visual to me that I was like, "Oh,
I like
oh,
that.
yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah. Yeah.
Good morning, Cheryl.
I
People are
know.
starting to roll in. I'm on time for the first time in a while, so that's new. You
Yeah,
help keep me accountable to the time frame, but
they are.
as we babble on. As you join Coffee Club this morning, please say hi in the comments. Welcome, Brett, back to the show as you log in and have fun. If you're catching this video later on the replay, you're still welcome to be a part of that conversation with us, and we invite you to do so as we also post it later on Instagram. So keep saying hi, keep sharing your thoughts. Hola, Corey. She's just been on a Mexican vacation. We got to just
Aw.
not hate her. Russ, good morning. Welcome. So, back to Virtual Coffee Club, our live podcast where we get to interact, check in, and welcoming back to the show our good friend Brett Gardner. It is so good to see your face. I feel like it's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? So I'm
Yeah.
happy to be here. It's great to see you as well.
Well, I was trying to think of when you were on the show last. It's probably this time last year, honestly.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. And then
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't think I saw you as much. Our rodeo season was a little more sporadic last summer, so I didn't see you as much as I normally do, but looks like it's full steam ahead this year.
Yeah, it looks like the gas pedal is going to be mashed to the floor. So it's going to be they've kind of crammed a bunch of stuff into a shorter time frame again. But excited to be back. worked a rodeo last weekend, and it was just so wonderful to see everybody together, and what has been kind of record crowds at the first few events already, which has been really wonderful. So everybody's out and at least at a place where they're feeling safe to do so and
Yeah.
excited to be together and celebrate the Western heritage, if you would. So it's pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know Brett, he is an award-winning professional rodeo announcer. I don't know, by night, by weekend, sometimes by several days of the week, depending which
Sure.
part of the summer. And he's also a former school teacher. And now you have did a bit of a career shift since we saw you last, which is one of the things I wanted to connect on this morning, because
Sure.
I know when the announcement first came out, I was like texting you immediately that I was so excited. And so you've been a guy who has been advocating and allying and just flying the flag of mental health for a long time. And I think that became a deep rooted passion for you. I'm assuming is why you would change careers into diving into that field. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Well, currently in the, I guess, yeah, the Monday to Thursday job. So I transitioned out of the school. I was a school teacher for 15 years, and then right when COVID showed up here a couple of years ago, it afforded me the time to chase another dream or passion, if you would, like you mentioned. So I went ahead and finished my master's in counseling and clinical psychology, and now I work as a clinical psychologist. So I'm just finishing what we would refer to as our internship hours. So they have to work a certain amount of hours to gain certification in the world of.
Yeah.
So I work with a mutual friend of ours, and Dr. Jody Carrington. So I work out of her clinic in Olds, Alberta, where I spend most of my time when I'm around home, and then I'm in Red Deer a little bit too. Usually once a week, I'm at a clinic in Red Deer. So we're just hanging out and trying to help people as best we can.
Yeah. How was that transition for you?
It was exciting.
Yeah.
It was exciting for me, and I think my years as a school teacher primed me for that occupation, and then
Yeah.
my years as a performer primed me for that occupation, and then there was also a lot of times where my own mental health struggles primed me for that occupation. So there was a lot of, when I get asked why did you go, there's probably 30 reasons why, but the transition was okay because of the experiences I've had in my life. So I didn't feel completely out of my league. Most days, I feel like I can survive, but there's those odd days that are quite troublesome and can get pretty heavy and pretty deep. But I also feel honored to be able to be a part of people's story and try and help them through their journey and their process, like other people help me. So the transition wasn't too bad, but I was excited to do it, and I've been enjoying it so far. So as much as you can enjoy that line work.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, and I think
Yeah.
too, we want like, what's it like working with Dr. Jody? She's such a, oh, I mean, like, I think she's one of those people, like, you love her or you hate her, and most people just love her. I don't know how you couldn't, but there's some people that don't. But she's just like, she's a ray of sunshine and a ball of energy and a powerhouse, really.
Yeah, she is. It's a good expression. She is a powerhouse, and I think everybody in the world has haters,
Yeah.
and I mean she's probably no exception. But I agree, she's pretty tough to look in that light, because I'm not sure there's anyone, and I'll say Canada. I'm not sure anyone over the past few years in Canada has shined the light on connection and relationship and how important it is to take care of ourselves and be willing to be real and authentic and tell the stories like she has. She's brought so many people into this arena of whether it be mental health or psychology or supporting teachers and first responders, and nobody's done it with so much influence maybe in our generation. And I know those are big words, but find someone else that has normalized that like she has. Find someone else that has had a ripple effect like she has. So it's pretty impressive. And that's one of the reasons that I certainly just have a tremendous amount of respect for her and a love for her because of what she's done and how she's impacted the people around her. Now, working alongside her, there's times when my office is beside her. I don't know if she's giving a presentation or somebody's, getting beat up. Like, yeah,
Yeah, you
she
never
is,
know.
yeah,
She's a yeller. Yeah.
she's amazing. I always think when I first started working with her, I said, when is she just going to take a break? And oh man, 24 hours a day, she can bring the heat. She is powered by passion, and she wants to change the world. And I think
Yeah.
anybody who wants to stand in her way is going to be in trouble because she'll run them
Yeah.
over.
Well, I'm sure it's been fun to come alongside that energy
Right.
and have that infused into this change for you at the same time. It
Yeah.
allows you to like, let's just borrow some of that, bring it over
Hmm.
here and use it for my own good. So that's
Hmm.
amazing. Good for you. As I said to you when I first connected with you on that change, I'm proud of you. Like I
Well,
love that you're diving into it's always to me I love watching people step into what's their next passion and what does that
mhm,
look like. And you were just somebody who just went for it. And that takes a huge amount of courage,
mhm.
a huge amount of courage. And I think especially being, I mean, I'm gonna gender specify for a moment when we shouldn't, but being a man coming into a field that is, I think, predominantly women focused, and I think conversations around mental health are I think we step into when it comes to having conversations about mental health and self-care and
Yeah.
women seem we sort of gravitate that we're like, yeah, we can really resonate with that. But having that conversation from a male perspective is a little bit more challenging. And I love that you're just jumping into that. Have you seen sort of that kind of shift for you?
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons, even when I pursued the career, when I started to kind of advocate more and champion the idea of mental health, I had a lot of people that would reach out when I was more willing to tell my story and my struggles with anxiety and depression. I had a lot of males that reached out. Like, I think I feel the same way. What do I do? And that's about as
Yeah.
far as we could get. And there's days even in my new career, that's as far as I can get.
Yeah.
The male part of the brain that has the ability to use language surrounding feelings is, a tenth the size of women. So even scientifically, it makes sense that we do struggle to talk about how we feel because we don't have access to the vocabulary. It's just the way we're built. Um, but when people had reached out to me and I tried to refer them to people or get them connected, some of them would only want to see a male, and that makes sense. But there was very few males in that line of work, so that was another reason that kind of spurred me on, if you would, to make that change because there was a bit of an underserviced population there. So it's someone who's willing to still identify as a masculine male and still be real and still be out there in the limelight of the public and do all those things and then still sit with other males and to talk about feelings and to try and get better and to try and become better fathers, husbands, friends, all of those things. So for me, it was a bit of encouragement to help that population if I could. I always use the analogy when I started to do the work that I needed to do to be better for my family and my friends. It's like I'd rowed the boat to the other side of the river, and when I got up on the other side of the bank and I looked over, there's a bunch of other awesome dudes on the other side of the river saying,
Like I'm
"What's
sending
going
you
on,
the
man? I need
boat.
help." So right now, I always say my journey, I'm just paddling the boat back over, and we're going to
Yeah.
load up as many as we can, and let's keep bringing them over to the other side, whatever that takes.
Yeah.
Life's too short, it's too fragile, all of the things, and we've witnessed that more than ever in the past few years. So how can we find what is good? How can we chase the good stuff and be happy and support one another and just love on one another? I'm okay with that. So it's
Yeah.
just time for me to do my job and do my part in that.
Okay. Well, and I feel like any woman who is currently trying to date in this world could
Yeah,
use a stack of your business cards
right.
that we could just hand out. I
Yeah.
make a joke, but
My wife may disagree, but we're fine.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't know, like dipping in that toe in that pool, like we need a lot of boats over there too, Brett. So
sure,
we will
sure.
gather more. But
Mhm.
I tease, but I like
That's good.
seriously tease. Anyway,
Good.
this week is Canadian Mental Health Week, which I always appreciate an awareness week because it
Yeah.
allows a space for people to have more conversation about mental health. And I love the last couple of years, their theme has really been around the hashtag get real
Yeah.
and having some real conversations. And I was actually interesting. I was looking, this is the 71st anniversary of this awareness week.
Wow.
So if I think for a moment back to like what were we talking about and what did mental health conversations look like 71 years ago? That would be a different like if we think we haven't gone far, we look to that we've come a long way.
Yeah.
And this year's theme is empathy. So I really liked the slogan. It was before you weigh in, tune in.
Yeah.
I liked the way that they have phrased that and really puts that into perspective. And from your expertise and the work that you've done, like what is the how does the word empathy resonate with you?
I've come to find that, I mean, empathy is truly a superpower. Like if we can be authentically, empathetic, it is maybe the most important tool we can have. And I think in both realms, if we're someone that's struggling with our mental health, or if we're just kind of walking through life and maybe unable to support others, when we can be authentically empathetic and feel with someone, it shifts us out of, and I always say one of my favorite expressions, and I use it in a clinical setting all the time too. How can we become more curious and not judgmental? And I ride that wave all the time, and maybe sounds simple, but when we're empathetic, it allows us to do that. And when we can slide out of this piece of judgment, because when we think of the world, something happens, somebody does something, and I am so quick to judge. We said earlier, right when we jumped on today, you said 50,000 thoughts or 60,000 thoughts. Well, 80% of those thoughts in our world right now that we have as humans are often negative.
Yeah.
So I'm quick to offer a negative thought or a judgment on someone, but I do that because I'm not empathetic. I'm not able to walk alongside them. How are they feeling today? How are they doing? What's going on with them? We really don't ever know. But when I'm not willing to walk alongside someone and feel with them, I feel at them or for them, and then I'm so quick to offer judgment. That person's bad because I don't like that person because they did this. Do you know the whole story? You haven't even let yourself be empathetic. So when we can shift out of judgment through empathy and be curious, we can start to question, oh, I wonder why they did that. What was their intent? What was the impact? And it allows us to have that conversation around that. It also allows us to have that intrinsic or internal conversation where we can be curious about ourselves and empathetic to ourselves. If I'm like, oh, I had the worst day ever, this really sucks. Okay, well, don't offer judgment to yourself. Again, be curious. Wonder why I'm feeling like this. What's going on? Be the detective in your own world. But if we can't first shift to empathy, we can never get there because we're stuck in that loop of judgment. And then it just repeats itself, repeats itself. You know, I don't know why people do what they do all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe they've had a really tough life. Maybe they're just having a really bad day. Maybe I misunderstood. How did I see their words? Maybe their words have a different meaning than how I took them. I gave the power away. All of those things.
Yeah.
But if we're able to be empathetic, we can shift so much of that. We can take that breath. And you said that collect and, or so your comment of, and pardon me, I was going to say collect and direct, and you'd said something else there. Weigh in or chime in. What did
Yeah,
she make?
it's before you weigh in, tune in.
Yeah, and that's really such a wonderful idea of empathy. Weigh in, you know, or tune in and get what you need, the information. The expression I always use, and Jody uses it too all the time, is like collect before you direct.
Yeah.
Collect the information. What's going on? What's happening? But if we can't be empathetic, it's really hard to be able to do that. Because once we offer judgment, it's like the story's over. We leave no room for growth. It's done. We've decided that person I don't like, or that person's broken, or I hate myself because, well, the story's over.
Yeah.
But if we can be empathetic, we continue those conversations both intrapersonally and interpersonally. So
Well,
empathy is a superpower, man.
It helps stop judgment, but I feel like from a friend on a peer-to-peer level, it also stops the advice giving. Because a lot of times, right, when you're just like, when you're wanting to spew about the something or vent or whatever it might be, your sharing of your emotion, you don't necessarily want any advice. You just need to get it out. But as friends, we're just like, well, have you tried this? And have you tried this? And what about this? And this works for me. And here's an example of me. But if you were just tuning in, a lot of that is that's the tool itself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I always say sometimes even when I started in this world, I was looking for the answer. We're as a humankind, we're so solution focused. We want to figure out the answer. But yeah, you're right. There often isn't no answer. Just holding space and validating and being there and listening.
Yeah.
So It's amazing. Yeah.
No, I love that. Well, and I think compassionate curiosity allows us some good teachable moments. I remember there was a time when, and just a random odd example is we had our motorhome parked out on the street for 2 days. right? And there's a bylaw in every community of like how long you can have your RV on the road and whatever else. And my son had went out to put something in it just before we were about to move in, and a woman came out and yelled at him about parking in front of her house. And this woman is just berating this 13-year-old boy about his parents' motorhome being parked. And he came back and he was like, Mom, that woman, I want to say bad words. She was so mean. She's so whatever. And I said, okay. I'm like, but just stop for a minute and think about maybe why she was mad.
Yeah.
Are we blocking a place for her to park? Is the fact that there's repairs on behind her alley blocking her this? Like I said, it probably has nothing to do with our motorhome buddy and everything to do with something else in her life. I said, so just take a breath for a moment and think about maybe where she's coming from. And he was like, oh. And it's just those little tweaks in being compassionate or empathetic or curious that allow us to move through. Because it's easy. I think the other easy example is like when somebody yells at you in traffic, or when people are mean to you. Most people, I don't think, like, granted, there's a select few of amazing assholes in the world, but I think most of the time people are good people. And when they're not being good people, there's a reason behind it.
Yeah, I agree. Hurt people, right?
Yeah.
Those are sometimes the ones that struggle the most, are the ones that often hurt others the most.
Yeah. You just want to Care Bear stare them.
Yeah. That's right.
What?
That's right. Yeah. And the greatest thing about empathy.
You could be Empathy Bear.
Empathy Bear. Yeah. There would have been an Empathy Bear in 2022. And I think even if somebody's listening in and thinking, well, if empathy is still obscure, how do we do that? The greatest thing about empathy is it's a skill. We weren't born with it. So the ability to learn how to do it is there, regardless if you're 4, 40, or 84.
Yeah.
That's what I think is really great about a lot of these things. We have everything we need to learn how to be empathetic, which in turn will allow us to be happier in our own lives. And that's what's pretty cool. So those are some of my most exciting and inspiring moments, is that we've got it. We just have to keep working to shed the light on it and just let it come through.
Well, and I like the word that I've learned in starting, like when we were talking earlier about meditation things, is they use the word practice, right? It's a practice of whatever it is that you're learning to do. And I think empathy falls into a practice mentality also, in meaning that we've got to try it a little bit every single day, and we'll never be perfect at it. We will never conquer it. It's always something we're working on. And I think that happens in all of mental health, really.
Completely agree. Yeah, there has to be a consistency. It's like when we talk about going to the gym. If I go to the gym every day for a year, I'm going to be more fit. I'm going to be better at whatever it is, lifting weights or running on a treadmill or any of those things. Same idea when it comes to the idea of mental health. Even if we shift it to mental fitness, if I'm consistently and intentional in my practice or whatever that may be, it's going to get better. It is tough sometimes because I say mental health is invisible.
Yeah.
It's really hard. So we often don't know. So there is this little bit of kind of faith and belief that we have to put into it to commit to that practice. Is it worth it? Speaking anecdotally and from experience, yes, it is. But sometimes it's still troublesome in winning some people over.
Well, do you ever fear? I don't know if fear is the right word, but does it ever come up in your thought process of, now we've had multitudes of conversations about mental health as this umbrella overarching piece, and it's become sort of this catchphrase word, but I'm not sure we still really understand what that means and what that looks like. And so how do we break that down to keep those conversations being more normal, especially for our, like what we were talking about earlier with men folk, or as like when we see people who are struggling, like how do we really break that down?
I think that's probably the big question.
Yeah.
I remember there was often early in my days, and people say there's a lack of resources. We don't have the resources. There is a lot of resources out there. I feel, and I know some will all have a hater that'll say, hey, not a chance. There is a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of tools. I use an app on a regular basis. There's lots of apps and things out there, but there's still that shift, and whether we want to call it stigma or whatever it may be, I do agree with you in that is probably the most monumental task. How can we get more people accepting that it's okay to talk about it? And again, what does it look like and what does it need to look like? The one thing I have come to learn is it is very individualistic to the person. You know, if you, and I'm going to assume if you've been to therapy or what you do or what works for you, it may not work for me. We both sit here and are on this call this morning because we're passionate about mental health, but we may do it completely different to get to what we feel is the best version of us. So I always think if we can do anything, the most important thing is to motivate people to take the step. And they say, well, what's the step? That first step is unique to each and every individual. So how do we just continue to almost be that cheerleader to have them find what they need? When I started my mental health journey, I said, I just have to do something. All I did was I say, I need to do something with intent. I started to go for a walk every morning. I didn't know what I was supposed to think about. I just started thinking about mental health. How could I be better? I just sat in my own brain for a while, kind of ruminated around. Well, why don't I try this? I was just willing to not continue to do what I was doing. And as easy, I don't know if that sounds easy, but as simple as that is in process, that's what got the ball rolling for me. It was just the commitment to be better. So I think a lot of that has to happen, but we have to remove some barriers. We have to continue to have conversations like this one, and it's just the commitment to that. So I wish there was a big, beautiful answer. Here's what we need to do to make this system so much better. But when I do say system, I do think it is a system approach. We need to systemically be better. And, people need to take on those mental health champion roles and mentorship roles and leadership roles. I think we're getting there. We're maybe not getting there at the rate, regrettably, of the increase in anxiety and depression that we've seen. The newest stats are kind of telling everybody that since the end of COVID, depression and anxiety have about doubled. So now we're even in high school kids, we're talking 25% of kids that are clinically depressed or have a generalized anxiety disorder. That's kind of scary. So what are we doing as a response? So great question. I wish I had a better answer.
Well, I think that was my next sort of thought process is because there's been such an increase in our younger generations now too, is equipping ourselves as parents. And I think
Yeah.
being able to admit right away, like, hey, you know what? You can say to your kid, I don't have the answer to that, but let's find it.
Yeah.
But I think as parents, I think because we're also conditionally taught things from past generations is you think you have to be this authority figure that knows all the things that you lord over your children. And I think it's time in that same theme of get real. It's time to get real with your kids too.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's tough. And there's lots of parents that are hurting. So how are we able to show up for our kids when we're broken or things are really tough in our life? What are we going through?
Yeah.
So, and again, we'll lean on Jody Carrington again. We can't give what we haven't received. If I don't receive empathy, if I don't receive support, how can I give that to my kids? Or I don't know what it looks like. Don't know what it feels like. So it's really, really tough. So I think as a parent, there is a role. You do have a role that you need to play to make sure that you do have the skill set. And if you don't have it, spend the time to try and get it. And again, easier said than done. But when we look at our kids, it's important. We owe it to them.
Well, and I think too is it feels like a big task, right? Like even when we think if you compare it to world hunger, right? Those are big things that when you look at them, you're like, what am I going to do about that? But there's little tiny things that you can do in your home, in your community, in your piece that's going to ripple affect it out. And if we all did that, think of the impact and the change that's made.
Yeah.
So don't think about the big piece. Think about the little piece.
Yeah. You gotta, be in the moment.
Yeah. I love it. Well, we could probably talk for 40 hours
Mm-hmm.
about this conversation together. We're both super passionate about it, but we'll be mindful of people's time on this Wednesday morning. But just wanted to thank you again for sharing your thoughts and your ideas and just being a difference maker in this world. We appreciate you so very much.
Well, right back at you. I appreciate your time and thanks for showing up for your community. That's, how you make your difference every day. So good for you.
Yeah, love it. And good luck with where you're headed next.
Thanks.
This is an exciting journey for you. And will we see you at lots of rodeos this year?
Yeah, probably too many, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work. No, I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to the season, and it's going to be really wonderful. So, full grandstands, and it'll be great.
Awesome. All right. Love that. Brett, thank you so much for your time today. And cheers, everybody. Have an incredible rest of your Wellness Wednesday, and we will see you back here at Friday on that internet. Honestly, I don't know why I do this. Just kidding. We'll see you Friday morning, 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Bye, everybody.